newspapers, and I know you guys are used to me talking about property stuff, and you're not really sure why I'm chatting about newspapers. But the reason why it's important to have a chat about newspapers is because historically, you look at the way that properties have been sold. It's all revolved around advertising and marketing, but in general about marketing through the newspapers. That was probably the main way of trying to let people know about your property being on the market. So I thought I'd have a bit of a chat about, what effect that's going to have on the way you actually sell houses nowadays. So I understand newspapers still exist, but if you've been out anywhere recently, I know when if you've been to the local uni, they give out newspapers for free because they're trying to get people interested in reading the newspaper. For me, when I go to the local footy, on the way out of the football, they give you a free newspaper. It seems like everywhere I go, they're giving away a free newspaper. And obviously, newspapers aren't free and they don't work off that model. They're going off a model they can try and sell it to you. So, and the crazy thing is, when you see people handing out free newspapers, people are saying they don't want one. So again, from my perspective, that's not a good sign. If they were giving out free donuts or free pizzas, everyone would be getting one. So that's a sign that people don't necessarily want the product they're selling. And so if that's the case, then what does that mean for newspapers in the future? Well, probably it doesn't mean much of a good thing at all, really. Hey Asley, thanks for the like, and Isaac, thanks for joining. So yeah, so what does that mean? So if we're going with the assumption that newspapers on their way down, and we know that one of the main ways of advertising properties in the past was via the newspaper, then how is that going to affect us in the future? So what that means now is, you probably know there's most people go on the internet now to look for properties. There's two main internet websites, property internet websites, which is realestate.com and Domain. They've pretty much got the chunk of the market as far as where people go for when they're looking for properties. Because you imagine most people now, when they're looking for property or information on anything, almost, if you're looking to buy a new bike or anything, almost, you can just type into Google what you're looking for and it'll come up, and then you find a comparison website. It'll compare the pricing of various things. And so a lot of people are using Google to be able to find most of their products and information in general, basically. But as far as properties go, it's really hard to Google search a particular property for sale unless you know the property's for sale. So, if you Googled house for sale in, Smithfield, if you know there's a house for sale in Smithfield, then it's going to come up with that property. But if you're just looking in general for houses for sale, you can't really Google houses for sale because it's just too generic. So you really need some way of just filtering it out, and that's where these real estate websites have really come into their own. They try to make it as easy as possible for you to narrow down, and they've got maps so you can actually see where all the properties are, and then filter via areas and suburbs and get all the property information you need, and you get a lot of historical information too, which makes it really useful as well. So there's definitely a need there, and relative to newspapers, when you used to just filter through and they had relatively small amounts of information about the property and you'd have to get in your car and drive around and look at everything. Nowadays you've got photos and videos and also 3D interactive tours when you can walk around inside the house almost before you've even bought it. So I'd probably so you can see you're going to get heaps more benefit out of looking on these websites, realestate.com, Domain. The problem you're going to get is once one start to take a dominance over the market, where that means where most people go to look for, that's pretty much going to be where most people are going to advertise at the same time too. And so what this creates this situation where basically when you're marketing your property, you have to go to one of those websites or the main website. And if you go to any other website where no one's on, if no one else is looking on those websites, it's almost redundant advertising if no one's going to see it. And so what this creates is this sort of monopoly in this situation where it's realestate.com and Domain. It's a duopoly, and then but probably majority of it's probably realestate.com, I suppose, in Adelaide at least, compared to eastern states where it's a lot more Domain is the other website. But what this creates is this situation where, because they've got this monopoly or duopoly on the market, they can essentially charge whatever they want to charge to market because they've got the people there looking for the properties. And although relative to a newspaper where there's a physical cost to printing newspapers, sending out, distributing, there's this actual physical cost. Once you've created one website, for you to add a second property or a third property or fourth property or 100,000 properties, it's pretty much the same cost. It's not really costing them that much more money. Obviously, they spend a bit of time improving their product so that then the competitors can't take over what they do. But essentially, it's almost once they've created the product and they've got the people looking on their website, then they can charge whatever they want. And then from then on, they can actually charge people a premium to be on top of other properties. And then if people are willing to pay money to be on top of, at a higher level than the other property, they'll charge more people. And so you get this situation where people are spending thousands and thousands of dollars to advertise on a website, when essentially it costs the same price whether you put a small advert than a big advert. And so creates this situation. And likewise, also the way we look for properties has changed quite a lot now as well, is the fact that we quite often look by just suburbs, and so we're looking at particular suburbs. And so if it's outside of that suburb, there's a chance we might miss that particular property. And the other thing that can become a problem too is our attention span's a lot lower than it used to be. So the days of flicking through the 20, 30 pages of the newspaper trying to look for the property that was perfect for you, now we get on realestate.com. In theory, it's a lot easier to find your property, but what happens, our attention span's a lot lower now. So basically, we're probably only going to look for new properties, and then once they're no longer new properties, then we're only going to probably look on the first page, and we're less likely to flick through the second and third and fourth and fifth pages of realestate.com or Domain. How that's changed the process now is, if we know a property's been on the market for quite a while, we know they're going to be on the third or fourth or 25th page of realestate.com. So firstly, we're going to disregard it. Or secondly, if we do pay attention to these properties that are on the 30th page of realestate.com, they've been on the market for a long time. Then you can negotiate really well with the agent to try and get the best possible price, because it's giving you a history behind the property. Also, you can go onto property websites, property information websites that will tell you when it went on the market, what price it was advertised at initially, what price it was revised down to. So you can get so much more information now. So the buyer is so much more informed than they were before. And this is a change the way you actually have to try and sell houses now. The way you have to sell houses now, you have to be a lot more strategic about it. You have to understand the system and how things are different than they were at the old days, and how now you have to really hit the property hard and get as many people there as quickly as possible to your opens, but then getting offers straight away, because you don't want the situation where you're third and fourth and fifth page of realestate.com, because you almost don't exist anymore. And the only way to try and create some more interest again is to try and put yourself back up the top again, which you can pay these internet websites to put you further up the top again, but there'll be still this historical link of the fact that property's been on there for quite a while. People know it's been on there for quite a while. Whereas with a newspaper, essentially you put one advert in and it's passed again, and another advert's passed. No one really has that history of what's actually happened with the advertising, because as far as they're concerned, it was only there when they looked at it, and prior to that it didn't exist. Whereas on the internet, you've got this historical record of what happened to the property. So hopefully that makes people understand that what you really need to do is, if your strategy to be to sell your house as quickly as possible. And I know that's really scary for people, but if you don't sell your house as quickly as possible, then your property goes stale. People know your property's been on the market for a long time, and it's going to create this situation where you may end up having to sell it for less than what you're willing to, because time is realized. People have realized that it's not worth. No one else is valuing this property, so why should I value it too? And why shouldn't I pay a lot less than what you're asking for, because I know you've got no one else looking for it? So the key, I think, is to make sure when you're trying to sell your property is to sell it really quickly, and have a really good strategy on how you're going to sell it quickly. I'm not necessarily selling it cheap. I'm just saying making sure you've got a strategy is going to get the most amount of buyers there in the shortest amount of time, getting the most amount of offers, and making sure you're going to make a decision very quickly on whether that's the best offer for you. So hopefully that's made sense. If you're out talking to an agent, you want some, you should really be asking them, how am I going to sell it as quickly as possible, and how am I going to sell it for the highest possible price? And they should give you a clear plan, a clear strategy on how they're going to do that. If they don't, then I'd definitely be concerned. I'd be chatting to another agent that hopefully gives you some better advice. So hopefully that's made sense. Hopefully you see how the world of newspapers is affecting the sale of your property, and hopefully you have a plan now how you're going to overcome that, the way things have changed. So thanks for chatting tonight, and I look forward to talking again next time. If you've liked what I had to say, then click on the like button. If you haven't liked it, still click on the like button anyway, because I really appreciate it. And if you've got someone that's thinking about selling their property and you think they'll find it useful, click on the share button. I'm sure they'll find it interesting. And if you've got something you'd like to say, you've tried advertising in the past and you had a good experience with the papers, or you tried advertising and you had a bad experience, put a comment in the comment box. I'll be interested to see how things went on for you. And I look forward to talking to you again next time. Thanks, guys.